morning. Welcome to Crisis Channel. I'm Paula, and today we're gonna talk about the breaking news of the crisis that Bankia is suffering. This crisis is a transgression one because it has an intentional and internal origin. We have our worker mates to explain us a little more and understand it. Hello, Christina.
Good night. As we all know, all companies go through great moments of crisis, and right now, Caja Madrid is going through its own. The, the possibility of a new entity called Bankia has been here several times in few time. The possibility of a new entity called Bankia that replace the what is actually Caja Madrid, a decision that we will know after the company's crisis committee meeting. But how this crisis happened? Okay, already in 2004, the inspectors of the Bank of Spain note that must be an important control at the real estate agency activity in Spain. Later, in 2009, this bank started a great exposure to the real estate market. The excessive dependence on financing and the restriction on obtaining capital cause in Caja Madrid the accumulation of various banking imbalance, and Rodrigo Rato replaced Miguel Blesa as the new director of Caja Madrid. Rato, already directing Caja Madrid, needs to solve all the problems of liquidity and delinquency to stop accumulating debts, thus entering a desperate situation, the actual one. So our main answers are: will Caja Madrid be able to call Bankia after the union of the 7 most important cajas de ahorro? Okay, these cajas de ahorro are Caja Madrid, Bancaja, Caja de Canarias, Ávila, Caja de Ávila, Caja de Segovia, Caja Mataró, and La Rioja. Or will this new entity believe not have enough economic funds to create such capital, and will the managers decide that quote on a stock exchange will be the best option, or will they have been wrong again and fall into another crisis? That's our main questions. We will know the answers to this problem very soon, since all the crises and events that they entail occur very quickly, and it is easy to notice if a crisis is recovering and returning as soon as possible to our normal business operations, or on the contrary, the crisis is worse and thus affects a large number of Spaniards, since Caja Madrid or Bankia are one of the most important and popular banks here in Spain. Yeah.
Talking about the financial rescue and nationalization, Bankia's situation was really delicate when the change of the government and the appointment of Luis de Guindos as the economy minister provoked the approbation of a new sanitization plan for the financial sector. The entity was heading towards a public bailout at the same time as Bankia's stock plummeted on the IBEX 35. Bankia's direction, regulators, and the market were aware that the real problem of the bank was its liquidity, and if it wanted to move forward, it had to receive a minimum of 50 million euros of public money, said Francisco González, the president of the Bank Bilbao Vizcaya Argentaria. On the other hand, the president of Banco Santander, Emilio Botín, also agreed with the figure commented by González, while adding, había que hacer una rapidísima capitalización de Bankia porque estábamos a punto del rescate, which means it was necessary to make a very quick capitalization of Bankia because we were about the rescue. Rodrigo Rato resigned the 7th of May of 2012 and the former CEO of BBVA, José Ignacio Irigoyen, was named his substitute. He was considered one of the most important bankers at the moment in Spain. Irigoyen, the 9th of May, proposed to the directors the transformation of the FROB loan into shares. The proposal was heavily protested. They couldn't deny because the auditors' accounts were not signed, so they weren't legal accounts, and they wouldn't face future criminal responsibilities. Therefore, the Irigoyen proposal was approved unanimously, and Bankia became nationalized at the hands of the FROB. It was really important to transmit a lot of money to the entity. In addition, the problem for Bankia and the government was that due to the transfer of powers, they will face a major crisis that would show panic and distrust in Spain and the financial system. The 25th of May, Bankia announced that they needed 19,000 million euros of public money, and as the Spanish government knew they weren't able to get that amount of money, he let the European Commission, the European Central Bank, and the FMI help them, and after some negotiations, they reached the following agreement. La concesión de una línea de crédito de hasta 100.000 millones de euros a bajos tipos de interés para recapitalizar y reestructurar el sistema financiero español. This agreement will help banks to regain market confidence and receive the necessary aid. Process required international consultants to review the needs of each entity. And at the moment, Bankia turned to be the financial institution with less solvency of all Spain. This combines reasons that Bankia needed immediate recapitalization.
Thanks, Cristina. Now we have Belen to talk us about the causes of this crisis. Hello,
The
Belen.
causes of the crisis, it is necessary to go back in time. Since the year 1994, Spain had a very strong expansion cycle, but this was made in an unequal manner. This made the economy in Spain become very vulnerable, and there was economic changes. This was, together with the real estate bubble and the financial deregulation, one of the main problems of the economic crisis and as well of Bankia Case. The real estate bubble was one of the main causes of the crisis. The 90s was a period of intense economic evolution. The approval of new laws led to the largest real estate boom in the history of Spain. This problem of the real estate bubble was because there was a very big demand in new houses, so it was necessary to increase the prices of these new houses. But in 1999, with the entrance of Spain in the euro, the financial entities began to give loans to all the people in order they could buy these new houses. And of course, this loan had a very reduced interest rates. The financial system gave many facilities for obtaining these loans, and these were known as low-quality credits, and they were considered as high risk. These loans make another big development in the Spanish financial system, which we have to sum up this to the real estate bubble that was in Spain already. This seemed to be good for everyone. In one hand, the banks obtained high efficiency of the loans that they were given. The families obtained loans which had low interest rates, and the investors could begin building lots of new houses, and they have a lot of profit from these new houses. This began to change when there was a huge fall in the prices of the houses, and there was a high number of unpaid loans. And there was no sense in buying houses in construction for selling them later in a higher price. So the sector, which was the most important one from 1997 to 2007, caused the greatest standstill in the Spanish economy. The crash of the crisis bring with it lots of regulatory failures. The liberalization and the globalization of the financial sector was not accompanied by the correct measures. The financial innovation destabilized the financial system, and this caused bankrupt. The external influence which made the crisis bigger was mainly the economic crisis which began in Spain in 2007. The economic crisis in Spain began in 2007, but many years before, specialists know the crisis will happen. In this moment, the Caja de Ahorros continue existing. But economists already know the crisis was coming, especially in Caja Madrid, which was the biggest one we're talking about clients, stakeholders, and workers.
Thanks, Belen, for your information. And well, that's all for today, so we hope you to have a good day. Good morning, welcome to Crisis Channel. We're here another day, and today we're gonna continue talking about the crisis Bankia is suffering. Today we have with us Julieta and Anne, who are gonna explain to us the different stages this crisis is going through. Hello, girls.
I'm Anne Gonzalez and I'm an expert on analyzing the different stages of a crisis. Every crisis starts with a pre-crisis. The pre-crisis first step is the signal detection. The signal detection of at that time Caja Madrid was the fact that there was a very big financial crisis going on. In 2004, a first notice was received by el Banco de España. They said that it was very necessary to control the real estate activity. It conveyed a high level of risk if the loaners didn't adjust to the proportion of the prey. Everything began when the 7 most important cajas realized they had a very big lack of capital. All 7 cajas, which were Caja Madrid, Bancaja, Cajas of Canarias, Ávila, Segovia, Mataró y La Rioja, merged because of the bad organization led by different politicians, which led to a great loans of money that couldn't be repaired and left all these cajas in debt. The merging was called BFA, which later on will be called Bankia. The second fact we have to take into consideration within the pre-crisis stage is the prevention. The way they tried to prevent the crisis was firstly merging all the cajas, as I mentioned before. When this was done, they re-established the president of the new composed company, who was well aware of the situation and had loads of experience in the financial sector. He was José Ignacio Goyrigolzarri, which till this day remains as president of the company. The last part to take into account within the pre-crisis stage is the crisis preparation. To prepare and deal with the biggest crisis, the only solution was the merging of these 7 cajas. This was done for people not to lose their savings that they had been investing during many years. Each caja had been led by politicians who didn't have a clue of how to run a financial entity. This caused the cajas to owe loads of money. This was their only option. Either they closed all the cajas and everyone lost their money, or they merged and tried to save everyone's savings in the.
My name is Julieta Martinez Pardo, and this is how the Bankia crisis went down. Spain was at its peak. The real estate market kept on flourishing. Houses, apartments, offices, garages were being bought each day. Cajas had money and were able to lend loans, and people were able to buy those houses and offices and were able to eventually pay them back. The only problem was that the cajas were managed by politicians who not only had no experience in the financial world, but also were corrupted. The crisis began when the real estate market broke. The houses, buildings, offices were being sold for lower prices, and the loans that had been given out were much more expensive, which caused people to be in debt with all those cajas. The situation that Spain was going through, because they couldn't obtain the necessary benefit to maintain them. The majority of these entities were pymes and micro businesses, and due to the break of the immobiliary sector, with many of them disappearing, it caused a big decrease in the demand of workers and in the sector, and in cause of this, more unemployed citizens. During the post-crisis, the financial entities and the citizens were the ones who suffered the most with this crisis. Until this day, we still feel the big impact this had over our economy and our lifestyle. A large number of businesses disappeared due to the fact that they couldn't handle.
Thanks, Julieta and Ale, for explaining us the stages of the crisis. That's all for today. Let's see you tomorrow. Welcome to Crisis Channel another day. Today we want to talk about how Bankia is managing its crisis. And for that we have Marina to explain us the communication strategies they are using. Hello Marina.
I'm communication strategy specialist, and the strategy was clearly ingratitude. Rato throws balls out during the trial in his last intervention, says that Bankia is a very complex entity and is organized according to the highest standards by the regulator, trying to explain that they had the best professionals. He focuses his final speech on trying to tell the public that his objectives have always been in defense of the interests of the shareholders. Rato blames the board of directors for this trial being carried out. He tries to carry out ball steering, trying to highlight the good things they had done as an organization before the disaster. This is Marina talking.
Thanks, Marina, for your information. It is also important to know the type of media they are using to communicate with the public. Basically, they are using television and internet. Through television, they are given some statements, like, for example, the one of Rato explaining that he could resign of the company. And through internet, they are using Twitter and YouTube, uploading some tweets and videos explaining whatever issue they want to explain. Now we have with us Belen, which will explain us the information they are giving to the public and the type of communication tools they are using. Thanks.
I'm going to explain which info and communication relation tools they use. For making the correct management of the crisis, it's important to have a good level of influence on the public and journalists. For this, they use many different tools in order to make this good relation with the media. The first one is the press release and press statement. In this case, both of them are used for giving information about this case all along the years. We have many press statements from Blesa, Rato and even Rajoy were asked about these themes in many press statements. There were some press statements which will we always remember in society. For example, when Rato was named as president of Bankia and some days ago he made a press release saying he was doing everything good. Also, we have to remember Rajoy defending Rato from the case of the black credit cards or many press releases and press conferences of the Banco de España and the rest of the political parties asking for the resignation and the entrance in prison of Rodrigo Rato. Press conference and press interview is something which was very common in this case, but it's important to say that before the crisis began, there was much more interviews and conferences than later. Rajoy, which was the president during the time Rato entered in prison, made many interviews and conferences explaining why he gave Rato that position in Bankia. It is important to remember also the special releases. This type of media continue to be used for talking about this case. Nowadays, the important people which were in Bankia during that time are in prison, like Rodrigo Rato or Blesa. But when they have trials with the judge, all the newspaper, TV programs, interviews cover this fact with their information. So this means it's a thing nowadays continue to be very important in society.
Thanks, Belen. Now we have a little more information to understand how they are managing this crisis. And well, we have Cristina with us to explain the committee members, the ones who are in charge of managing this crisis. Hello, Cristina.
Good night. We are here in Madrid at Plaza Castilla, where that conversation between the members of the Bankia Crisis Committee will have taken place. The members of the committee are José Ignacio Grigolzari, CEO of Bankia. Then we have José Sevilla, General Director of Managing, Miguel Crespo, General Secretary, Antonio Ortega, General Director of Media and Technology, and Amalia Blanco, General Director of Communication and External Relations, among others. In one of the rooms of this tower, they will have discussed the crisis that currently affects the company, accompanied at all times by external consultants, experts in their fields. Remember that the work of this committee is very difficult at the moment, and the final decision will probably be one of the most drastic, maybe radical, and so far.
That's the information Cristina has given us. Thank you. And thank you all for being with us one more day. See you tomorrow. Good morning. As you know, we have been talking about the crisis Bankia has been suffering during all these years, and today we're gonna continue talking about it. 8 years later, although Bankia seemed to have an economic growth, this year Bankia has been on red numbers and the second worst value of IBEX 35 here in Spain with a fall of the 22%. We don't know what will be the future of Bankia, but definitely this is not good for its reputation. As the CEO has already said, they have not achieved to obtain the social recognition they need. And for this reason, people don't trust on Bankia, neither any financial identity. So maybe their crisis communication and crisis management could have been better. The CEO defends that people need to trust on them and to think that banks need to gain money for a sustainable and an economic growth for the country. But this is something society doesn't think. So now we have with us Marina and Julieta, who are going to have some interviews with some former workers of Bankia and Santander. So let's see what they have to say.
Nos encontramos hoy aquí con un actual trabajador de Bankia. Buenos días, José María.
Hola, buenos días.
Le vamos a hacer unas preguntas desde Crisis Management Channel. Todo el mundo que trabajaba en su sucursal recuperó continuó con su trabajo o qué pasó.
Cuando vino Bankia nos mantuvimos todos, los que trabajamos en la sucursal, excepto una persona que se acogió a un sistema de prejubilación.
¿Pero por temas del cambio de caja de ahorros a Bankia o...?
Yo entiendo que sí, que fue por un tema del cambio de una entidad, de la fusión de 7 cajas de ahorros que fue en su momento a lo que es Bankia ahora, quitando la BMN, que eso ya fue posterior.
Vale. ¿Y cómo te afectó a ti personalmente?
Yo seguí trabajando en mi mismo puesto, como el puesto de responsabilidad que mantenía, que todavía mantengo, y hombre, el nivel de exigencia era máximo, pero me mantuve y no noté mucho.
Muy bien. ¿Y cuando cerró Caja Segovia, dónde empezó usted a trabajar o seguía en la misma sucursal?
Seguía en la misma sucursal, lo que pasa es que como luego siempre hay movimientos laborales nos mueven de unas oficinas a otras, al poco tiempo me mandaron a otra sucursal, pero yo creo que no fue motivado por el cambio de la caja a Bankia.
Vale, bueno, pues eso es todo. Muchas gracias.
Encantado.
Igualmente.
Buenos días, señor Martínez Pardo. ¿Cómo está usted?
Muy bien, muchas gracias.
Bueno, le querría hacer unas preguntas sobre la crisis financiera
Encantado.
de Bankia. ¿Cómo vivió usted este escándalo en su momento?
Bueno, fue un escándalo bastante largo de contar, pero bueno, lo vivimos con cierta incertidumbre y temor porque no se sabía exactamente lo que iba a pasar, porque si las cajas finalmente quebraban, que era la primera idea que se tuvo, dejarlas caer, pues iba a afectar mucho a todos los ahorradores, la gente iba a perder su dinero, etcétera, etcétera, ¿no? Entonces, dentro de lo que cabe, pues fue una solución intermedia en que la gente consiguió al menos no perder y no arruinarse todos los ahorros que estaban a cargo de esas entidades, ¿no? Pero bueno, se vio con preocupación, pero al final pues todo salió.
Vale. ¿Cree usted que esto se podría haber evitado?
Pues no, la verdad es que era una situación compleja, se había llegado a un extremo en el que los políticos de estas cajas habían llevado a la quiebra prácticamente a todas las instituciones. Y la prueba primera que se hizo fue en Estados Unidos, donde se permitió caer a 2 bancos, que fueron Bear Stearns y Lehman Brothers, y afectó muchísimo al sistema financiero y estuvo a punto de quebrar no solo el sistema financiero americano, sino el sistema financiero mundial. Simplemente en España las consecuencias de la quiebra de Lehman afectaron más o menos en torno a 800.000. Se hizo lo mejor que se pudo, que fue empaquetar las cajas, tratar de sacarlas a bolsa y reflotarlas, ¿no? Con una ayuda de dinero estatal. Pero bueno, ahora por lo menos en bolsa, vía dividendos, pues está repartiendo y devolviendo parte de lo utilizado por capital público, se está devolviendo al Estado. De forma muy lenta, pero bueno, creo que la gestión que se está haciendo es buena.
Vale. Y la última pregunta, su banco, el Banco Santander, ¿se vio beneficiado por lo sucedido?
No, se vio muy afectado primero a nivel corporativo y a nivel digamos, del público, pues la gente empezó a rechazar a la banca y a pensar que español era y es y sigue siendo muy bueno, muy competitivo y muy eficiente. Lo único es que hubo políticos, insisto, en que manejaron las entidades como si fueran sus propias empresas y con una malísima gestión de riesgos y con por supuesto, con mucho amiguismo y utilizando el dinero público de una forma lamentable. Por esa razón, todavía hay algunos políticos que se les están juzgando y algunos que están presos hoy en día, ¿no? Pero como beneficiarse en absoluto, creo que fue muy perjudicial y luego las consecuencias han sido mayores requerimientos de capital para los bancos, tienen que aportar más dinero, más garantías, etcétera, con lo cual el sistema financiero hoy en día tiene problemas de obtener buenas rentabilidades como antaño.
Vale, pues muchas gracias.
No, con mucho gusto.
Thank you, Marina and Julieta. With these interviews, we can know how workers are living this crisis inside the company and also how other entities are suffering this crisis too and if they have been affected or not. So, well, this is all for today. Let's see you tomorrow.